Okay, so here we have a dihybrid cross, and it's the dihybrid cross that was discussed in your textbook. It's obviously this is a little more complicated than you might see in your textbook, and the reason is they put a lot more detail into this. And what we're going to look at is the phenotypic ratio, which is standard for all dihybrid crosses where you have two heterozygous parents. So let's take a look at the parental generation over here, and this X in this case does not mean multiply with, it means crossed. So you have a big P, this parent here with a big R, and little y. You see they're homozygous for each one. Now you need to know this is very important, is that when you see this kind of notation, you're dealing with two genes. One gene is the double R and the other gene is a double Y. Now remember, we've talked about this about 100 different ways. You have two genes for two copies of each gene. So obviously if you have two big R's, that's the two copies that this parent has of that particular gene. And if you have two little Y's, that's the two copies of the Y gene that parent has. So this parent can only give a big R and a little y. That's all this parent can give. Over here we have little r, and big Y. And so this parent is wrinkled and yellow. And now this is different from the example you have in your textbook, but the ideas are still very much the same. When you have this cross, when you cross these two, you have to think about what kind of gametes can this parent make, this wrinkled yellow parent make. This wrinkled yellow parent could only make a little r, big Y gamete. Now remember, gametes create a haploid number of genes, so they only have one copy of each gene. One little r in this case and one big Y. You have that because that's the only thing the parents have to give. If you look at the little r, the parent can only give a little r, so that's what you're going to have in every one of the gametes. You see here, the big Y is the only thing that the parent can give is a big Y, so that's what you're going to have in your gametes. So you have little r and big Y. When you're making interrupted with a phone call, but let's take a look at this now. Let's take a look at this parent. You see, you have big R, so this parent can only give a big R. And this parent can only give a small y because it has small y. So that all its gametes are going to be big R, small y. So that's the first generation of individuals that can come up. So this is all the F1 generation will be heterozygous for each one of the genes. They'll be heterozygous for the round, so the big R, little r, and they'll be heterozygous for the yellow, big Y, little y. That's all of them will be round and yellow, so the phenotype is 100% round and yellow, but the genotype is all heterozygous. Now, interestingly, this was exactly the same results that Mendel got in the first set of experiments. If you remember, he crossed the purple flowers and the white flowers. By crossing the purple flowers, they're all big P, and the white flowers are all little w. They end up with all purple flowers heterozygote. This is exactly the same results, except here we're dealing with two different genes. So now you have this parent, now this F1 generation, we're going to cross them. So they're all the F1 generation are going to have, as I said a moment ago, is all heterozygous for both the round trait and the color trait, the yellow. So the heterozygous parents, once you cross these two, you're going to get a certain type of gamete. Which gametes are you going to have when you cross big R, and big Y, little y? Well, you have to consider what are the possibilities. Now, I like to think of the idea of factoring. So if you're going to take a big R, little r, and big Y, little y, and you're going to make different types of gametes, so they're going to have different kinds of possible outcomes. You can see that you can take this big R and go with the big Y, and of course then the next combination of factoring, just like in factoring in math, the big R can go with the little y. The next option is that you'll see the small r go with the big Y, or the small r go with the little y. So the different versions or different possibilities are big Y, big R, that's found in these two combinations here. The same combinations are going to be for the male. In this case, the male is here, and the female, which you'll find here. So both the eggs and the sperm can be big R, big Y, because both of them had this possible outcome. They're both heterozygous for both genes. So the next possibility is you can have big R with little y. And we just did that, didn't we, up here in the factoring. When we looked at factoring up here, you saw that those were the possibilities. Big R, big Y. Of course, you have another big R, big Y over here. Little r, little y, that's another possibility. And there's another little r, little y here. And these little r, big Y here, and little r, big Y here. These are all possible gametes for the particular plant that's heterozygous for both genes, here and here. So you do your crosses, and what do you end up with? This gamete would give you a big R. Gamete would give you a big R. So you have big R, and then you have two big yellows, two big Ys. So this plant is round and yellow. The next one here, big R, little y, crossed with big R, little y, you come across and you start to see that big R, because this is giving you a big R here, so is this one. This one, though, is giving you a little y. This one gives you a big Y, so you end up with big Y, little y. Homozygous for the R, heterozygous for the Y. So you do all the crosses, and these are your results. Just do the same, just like we just did, just filling out a table. So big R, it's only, the gametes can only give what they have. The parents here, these parents can only give their heterozygous big R, big Y, little y. So these are your only possible combinations based on this idea of factoring. So you see that you have, if you start to count them, you'll see you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 round yellow peas. So we end up with 9 round yellow plants. So this is the phenotypic ratio down here is what we're counting up. So you look at these, you see 3 green round peas, so that would be 9 to 3. And there's the green, they nicely put, they very kindly put the P next to the number for you. Then if you look for wrinkled yellow peas, you'll find there's 1, 2, 3 wrinkled yellow peas. And then there's only 1 green wrinkled pea. Now, your textbook did it a little different in the sense that they put this chart at an angle and they had the order of the gametes different. But if you count them, no matter what the different order of the different gametes, if they're heterozygous for both the sperm and the egg, or in this case, the pollen and the egg, then you're going to get 9 to 3 to 3 to 1. So no matter what the traits, what the two different kinds of genes you have, you're going to have the 9 to 3 to 3 to 1 ratio. And that's a dihybrid cross. Now, you could talk about the genotypic ratio next. I would stick to the genotypic ratio for AP biology. The key is this ratio you need to memorize, just like you need to know that when you cross 2 purebred plants or animals for a single trait, you're going to end up with a 3 to 1 phenotypic ratio. When you're doing a dihybrid cross, you're always going to end up with 9 to 3 to 3 to 1. That's again assuming we're dealing with just round or 2 traits that are dominant and recessive. Okay, well that's it for a dihybrid cross. If you have any questions, do the problems in the book, in your handout that I emailed you on Monday. Any issues, send me an email. I will be sending you the answers to that entire packet on Monday. I'm going to do another one of these little videos explaining it. You're expected to have already tried to answer the questions, so that when I send you the answers, you're comparing the answers. You're not writing them. All right. Thanks. Hope you have a good day.